some other African innovators and inventors that are busting out. There is something very interesting about African inventors and innovators. Have you ever heard that saying that if you want to hide anything from the black man, you should hide it in between pages of books? Well, it seemed like Africa did actually understand that it's garbage that has been indoctrinated into the textbooks so that we read and we will not be able to reason. Let's take a look at it. From the huge margin of people who are graduating from Africa, how many inventors do we have there? How many Africans, after graduating from the Western education system, are creating empires, are entrepreneurs, are empowered to start on their own without being a perpetual job hunters? It is zero. Now let's go on the other side again. How many Africans are practicing what they read in school or what they studied in school? The answer is near to zero. So they all, after all that time wasted, the resources, they still have to depend on the entire system differently from what they studied and wasted their money on in order to make ends meet. That goes to say that the Western education system is only enslaving us, is only crippling our economy. And so it's high time for we to abolish it. Now let's go back to Maxwell Chikumbutso. Someone sent me a thread when I uploaded the video, which a lot of you are seeing the thumbnail here. I'm going to show it to you guys with my phone that the screen has cracked. So somebody sent me a thread, and he said, tell us where Maxwell Chikumbutso is, or we're going to report you to actually reporting a fake misinformation, and we're going to ban your channel. I laughed. I told him, give your best shot. Now, someone, again, we're having a lot of, I'm going to be pulling it, so this conversation on this very live today is going to be interactive. It's going to be going back and forth with the most hated speech, most hated comment I've got, backslash why on standing strong on Maxwell Chikumbutso's mandate, his invention. There is a saying that if you haven't found what is worth dying for, then you are unworthy of living. I actually believe it. I actually believe that very philosophy. Now let's go. This one says, bullshit. It is exactly on this very video, which I put the thumbnail. It's a bullshit. If it is true, make it open source that nobody can stop it. It will remain inventor. The whole world will donate to him. That's actually coming from a white guy. There is no way it's going to come from Africa. I can make this shit up. So look it up for yourself. So if you find that very video there, you're going to see it. Maybe probably I should get my other phone that is much more big, more into it. I think that's going to be better than this. So on this cracked screen. If you're bothered about the cross screen, you guys should make me some. Let me get it. That's all I'm gonna say. But now let's go into it. I wanna pull up. Those comments. Some of them are threats. Some of them are not. They're very very tiny. And it is all about Maxwell Chikumbutso. I published information concerning Philip Emeagwali, the father of internet. The Western world go haywire. They have a lot of different kinds of hate speech going on there. I can't ban all of them. I have to leave some of them so you guys can be able to take a look at it for yourself. So when I talk about why the West and the rest hate Africa, it is not just cooking up conjectures. No, it is not. Right? So I want to go ahead. I have my, and this one here is going to be much more better. So let me try if I can pull that out. Pull up that. Okay. Here is one. So if you read it correctly, this guy is saying that it's a hoax. You can see it right there. Look at it right there. So it's a hoax. So there are a lot of them, but that is not even the striking one. Okay, here is the threat I'm talking about. And it said, tell us where Maxwell Chumbusu is, or we're going to report that you are actually propagating misinformation, and they're going to ban your channel. I told him, give it your best shot. Now there is another girl that's saying that, okay, look at it here. This channel is created to spread misinformation. That's it right there. I know they will never see this coming. Dr. Koo, I started spreading false misinformation. Now, I'm not scared of anyone coming out there. I'm not, right? Okay, now here is another one. This is the biggest bullshit. I think this one made the whole headline. This is the biggest bullshit. If it is real, make it an open source. That one there really got pretty hard. It hits me pretty hard. Make it open source, then nobody can stop it when he remains inventor of the whole world and donates to him. Are you serious? Free energy for all Tesla dreams and JP Morgan did not want that. Don't die if it is true with your invention. Sounds like a very good advice for someone who is below 6 feet under the ground. Okay, let me try and see if I can turn up the volume. I just hope it's not going to stop this very live section. Oh, okay. I hope you can hear me right now. I'm supposed to use a headphone so I can be able to calculate the amount of volume that is putting out there so that you guys are hearing, but I don't have my headset. So let me go ahead and pull it up again. That's it. He is suggesting that Maxwell should make his invention open source so that everybody can be able to whatsoever. But here is my take. I'm a very, very brutally honest person. There are some videos which I've made previously, which I'm going to go back to after explaining this to you guys. There is in my own lifestyle, and I'm using that to impact a lot of you who are core, maybe I don't even know you, who are core subscribers of my channel. And that is to be brutally honest, truthfully, no bias, no bullshit. So whatever is going to come out of it, I'm not scared of it. Even if it is that, I'm not scared of it, right? But I can keep on framing lives like most people are doing everything for the money. No. There are certain times where someone actually do everything for the money, and there is a certain time where he doesn't just do anything for the money, but to satisfy his own conscience, and that is exactly what I'm doing. Now, let's go back to the Western auto pioneers. I am actually diving back in these areas because those are typical examples of innovators. We're talking about Mercedes, Honda, Toyota, Nissan, Mazda, you name them. Tesla, Elon Musk. Have any of this brand which I just named here, have they made anything open source? The answer is no. So, what is really going on? Why do Africa have to make their own open source in order to prove it is genuine? That is rubbish, because there are a lot of Maxwell Chikumbuso realistic video which I'm putting out there, and those videos are challenging the established norms, and they are very, very realistic, where he is literally using the car back in 2016 to power up a welding machine. And we all know that welding machine is a power guzzler. How does the welding machine does? Every circuit there is engineered to amplify the power, and when it amplifies it, it comes to bridge the power together. But there is some kind of something which I really don't understand, because when the power is bridged, is amplified, probably is converted to DC, or it passed through a transformer, and because of that, it converted that high power into DC, and you wouldn't be able to shock someone else. Each time you have the earth's electrode and the positive, when you hit two of them together, it's supposed to shock you. So, but each time you are welding any metal, you are literally bridging the two, life and neutral, together. That is what is actually welding, melting any iron or metal which you're using to weld. That is why welding machine is a power guzzling monster. So any device, any generator that powers up your welding machine, it is not a joke. It can literally power up most of your electric guzzling appliances. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. Like I said, in a nutshell, Mercedes, there are cars of Mercedes of 1970s, 1980s. What if I told you that some of the technical, not even technical service bulletin, the workshop manuals are not released to the public for free? We are not even talking about going into giving out the secret ingredient of building those automobiles to people. We are just talking about as barest minimum as the manual to use and fix the car, which will also somehow promote the use and purchase of their car. But what happened? They didn't even release the repair manual for people to use. How did I know? Because I'm already inside the system. Let's go to Yamaha. Yamaha built one of the most long-lasting, durable motorcycle. When it comes to the CV carburetor and most of those guides on how to understand the engineering that they have actually built over years, guess what? The workshop manuals. We're not talking about the real intellectual property, which is how they're able to build those blocks, engine blocks, pistons, piston rings, crankshaft. How were they able to, from the ground up, from processing the metal, from the cutting, from the milling, every process, they have never made even a pin an open source. And you want Africa to bring out one of the most greatest invention ever in human history, to make it open source. To be honest with you, if I'm Maxwell, I'd rather die with the knowledge than make it open source. I know a lot of people are going to be hurt by it. If he hasn't tried enough by crashing the price to $15,000 per car, then that's a different thing, which is unparalleled to any automobile industry out there, any EV industry. Let's take a look at the flagship cars that is shutting down every other EV industries these days, which is the thank you, which is the BYD U7 and U9. It's having the blade barrier, which is the game changer. How much is the U9 going for? How much is the BYD U7 going for? It is a staggering $250,000. And the other one is around 100 and something thousand dollars. That is not cheap. It is like almost the cost of a kidney. Wow. This is very shocking. I don't understand why this is very low. Maybe I have to unplug the mic. I don't know. Maybe I have to unplug the mic, but for most of the times where I've been using the okay, maybe I won't plug the mic. Where I've been using let's see how it does this time. Okay, the mic is unplugged. So I hope you can hear me clearly right now. I can take this away. But you say it's a little bit better now, but it's faded. I don't understand. Can you hear me clearly right now? Okay. So, in a nutshell, we have a lot of Chinese techs, BYD, Huawei. These guys are developing masterpiece in EV industries. But have any of them shared any free knowledge? The answer is no. So we're talking about the Japanese, the Honda, the Toyota, you name them, Mazda, none of them is sharing any secret ingredient. They are not even releasing the workshop manual for people to understand how to fix their car. Not even Elon Musk with all his zillion. And someone is busy here hating and saying if Maxwell Chikumbutsu's technology is real, he should make it open source. That's the most parasitic advice I've ever heard. Now, for the people who are giving a lot of backslash to my stand on the free energy revolution from Africa, I think you're pretty much wasting your time because you don't understand, you really don't understand what the core Africans are and what they can do. I want you to critically think about why is it that there's just near to insignificance mixture of the Western world and the the African. Why is it that they don't coexist? Why is it that the Africans really don't get married to Americans or Europeans? You think it's about compatibility issues? No. The reality is that there are a very powerful cultural heritage of Africa that most of you Europeans, Americans cannot adapt to because it is very, very strict to your own compatibility or whatsoever. And because of this, most Africans, core Africans here, are seen the West as, especially Western women, as problem. And trust me when I say, when Africa say that someone is a problem, when you look at it 360 degrees, the person is a problem. They are not about trying to like the scam, the hoax, a lot of you people, a lot of the trolls I'm seeing in the comment section of those videos are saying. That is why you really don't have a core Africa intermixing with the West. I can admire them, oh, they look beautiful, but when it comes to marriage, no. Why? Because the core obedience, the core partnership values that is required in order to establish a relationship, the West can't actually measure up to that. What they mostly do is the fanfare, the luxury mindset, the chunk of money that is there. Um, Marriage is for better I stay, for worse I go. And that is why African can do that. Now let's go more deeper into other African innovators like the Namibia guy that invented a seamless phone, Petrus. I heard a lot of white guys, let me pull this up, said it's already existed some years ago. And I'm kind of like, what's really going on? So whatsoever African invented right now, it's already existing years ago. So why don't you folks who have both facilities, the money and tech, why don't you bring it into mainstream? Why don't you make it available for people to use? So the reality there, okay, thank you. I know probably because the condenser mic which I was using previously is actually trying to suppress the background noise, and that is why it's lowering my volume, the volume of the mic from the device which I'm using to make the recording. So a lot of people are saying it's a hoax. Some are saying it's already existed, just like when in Maxwell Chikumbutsu, a lot of them are saying it's Nikola Tesla work. But let me shock you guys a little bit. Nikola Tesla work ended in story. There wasn't any realistic real life development. We're talking about prototypes. We're talking about working ones that can be able to be used. But in 10th February 2025, Maxwell Chikumbuso unveiled a lot of different uh, cars, two cars, one drone, and one motorcycle, and all of them are running on the uh, microsonic energy device. And if you listen to this very guy here from 2000, from 2011, from all the way from 2011 to 16, all the way up, he has been consistent and he has never changed. So tell me exactly what inconsistencies a lot of people are talking about. I have on my own self dive into different people who are claiming that this is a hoax. Their channel, you're talking about Chikanza. I have been there into his blog spot and whatsoever posts. I have been combing everywhere to find a linked evidence that prove that is a hoax, and I couldn't find one. I've also checked through Nigerian PR. I went through the YouTube page to see a video evidence, right? That they have Maxwell Chikumbuso device and they tore it apart and realized that it's actually Barry. But guess what? I still found nothing. So at this very point here, I know that this is actually coming out of hate. It's coming out of envy. It's coming out of jealousy. It's coming out of uh, the fear of Africa awakening, the fear of Africa coming into realizing the real potentials which they have. So in this very regard here, a lot is at stake because the West are really scared of Africa. Let's take a look at a lot of deeper understanding of the Palindaba Treaty, which forbids Africa, they push Africa to sign that they're not going to stockpile, touch any some sort of nuclear power or whatsoever. That's to tell you that that's to show you the level of how scared they are because they know there's going to be a retaliation if African nations could possess nukes. And I can give you a lot of examples, right? Realistic example that highlighted this very fact well. Muammar Gaddafi, unalive, his armies were destabilized. And what happens next? He was unalive. And Japan, Hiroshima, bomb was dropped there, a nuke for the first time in the world. And it wasn't only just one, the second one was dropped in Nagasaki. If we look at back in the history within those times, Japan, Japan doesn't possess nuke. Unless, just a little bit of reverse, let's take a look at the conflict that has been happening between Russia and Ukraine, right? And if we take a look at it, we see that everything that has been going on there is some sort of a proxy war between US using Ukraine. But realistically, has US dropped a bomb in Russian soil? The answer is no. And what's the reason why? Because Russia possesses almost equal stake to that of US. I know you can argue it, but let's go to North Korea. The same thing happens back some years ago where US and North Korea have some sort of a misunderstanding. It ended in war of words. But did they drop any nuclear? Did they drop any bomb there? The answer is no. Why? Because Kim Jong-un is constantly parading with his arm. Okay, let's take a look at it with that of China. Nothing. It ended in trade war. There was no gunfire. There was no drop. Why? Because China have theirs. But let's look at most African countries. The story is not the same. So the West are living off Africa material, raw minerals at dead cheap to keep the economy running. However, what I want to say here is if suppose they could be able to make it at least let Africa be able to stabilize their own economy. Just stabilize the economy and not ravishing into poverty or deep trenches, then I think this whole tussle to even acquire nuke or whatsoever wouldn't even happen. There was a video which surfaced online the other day. Somebody was talking about, I want to play that video to you guys. Was talking about Burkina Faso is building, has finally worked in partnership with Russia, and now Burkina Faso a nuclear power plant. So this white guy twisted it, and he was talking about how Burkina Faso will be building a nuclear weapon. And somebody picked that very narrative up. A black guy, which I'm certain that you probably know, and he was very, very concerned about why was the first impression. Look at it right here.
Burkina Faso, with help from Russia, will create Africa's second functioning nuclear reactor, therefore granting Burkina Faso the ability to create a nuclear weapon.
You see, what you just witnessed there is the spin against Africa being self-sufficient and taking care of its own business. You see, you're going to start seeing a lot more videos like this coming out of Western content creators and people in the West talking about how Burkina Faso is going nuclear and they're going to have the ability to create a nuclear weapon. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. Why is the default going directly to create a nuke as opposed to them being able to create the means to power themselves with nuclear energy on the uranium sitting underground in their own country?
Okay, so you guys watch that, right? So the fear of Africa is real. And I'm going to use this to tell most of you who are watching. Okay, I'm trying to get to this. Hi, Becky John, hi. There is something which someone is saying here. Maybe I need to take a snapshot of it. If suppose I have a way of sharing the comments that are coming up so that you guys can take a look at it. So I'm certain a lot of you guys are also reading it. Certainly. But in analysis to the video, this very video which I show you guys here is the fear of Africa. So when someone, especially the white guys or the Asians, see you as a black person or African and running around you in circles and some kind of start making those kind of behavior or aggressive thoughts or some sort of trying to frame something on you, which has been happening. I have a lot of more evidence about a woman who framed two twins that framed a story, some sort of fake that a guy assaulted them, and every attempt to actually see the reality in the US was being sidelined. And at last, this very man here was incarcerated for 40 years. And at last, with the help of his lawyer, he was able to get out after 40 years. But guess what? There was no any solid evidence. The evidence that was labeled against this very person here, this very two twin, they discovered even after the research, right? There was no any assault. But you know the painful part, this very people here that made this very level of accusation didn't even have any remorse. They are still feeling offended after ruining someone's life 40 years. So whether you are a white person watching this very video or a black person, I don't care. But what I'm trying to say here is the West are highly unstable compared to Africa, mentally and physically. And that's why their own world is crawling with cops. You can't compare the huge amount of cops that is in Europe or America or Britain. Africa. Africa is stable. Let's forget about the geopolitics tricks and the rest of them. You will understand that Africa is more stable compared to the African system is not really so designed into cooking its children. UK right now, there are a lot of people who are getting out of UK. I'm talking about the billionaires or even the millionaires because the tax is suffocating them. And all I'm going to say about that is that karma always come back around. Now, you said open source is just one way getting information out. However, there is more to our difference than you are citing our condition over 400 years. Getting information out there, which they take home. What is the take home as the pioneer who actually invented such a device, such a groundbreaking technology? You're going to be living on people's donation, right? Just like Western aid to Africa that comes with strings attached. That is nothing, that there is nothing good about it. Or is it the GMOs that is being pushed by Bill Gates into Africa? Is that the kind of donation which we're going to be expecting? It is, I wouldn't even want to go into that. I won't even go into debating why Maxwell Chikumbuso or any African innovator or inventor, let's say like the Malawi guy, the Malawi boy that dropped out of school, and instead of going to start sourcing for finances to go back to school, he decided to invent some sort of a device that converts the thin air we breathe into electricity. So why the mother was citing on how let people of goodwill should help so that he can go back to school, in my own honest opinion, is suppose I have the finances, is no. Instead, we structure some sort of kind of African type of education system that is going to foster the growth of such innovation without the Western miseducation school. I'm having a lot of disturbance here from my kids. Those are the noise you guys are hearing in the background. Apologies. Okay. Many Americans are conditioned to accept the mainstream media transmits to sheep. I don't understand what that word means. I've been following the chicken book, so yes. As a matter of fact, during the time where it was really cooking up the internet, I observe it closely, and that is where I get to see the West in their true colors. No Western guy was actually publishing anything meaningful concerning that very fact. It's only one Western guy. You finally made it. You finally made it, right? Okay, guys. So that's my son right there. I think trying to step into this very video. Please put up your clothes and come and take it away. So no Western guy actually published any relevant information about it. And that goes to say how the West can treat Africa when in times of their breakthrough. We're not even talking about the media blackout. That's another different section. And you're right. When you say that they are being conditioned by what they saw in the mainstream media, that is why I don't want it to be in the mainstream media. The entire Al Jazeera, CNN, Fox, um, Vantage, First Post, you name them, all the Western and Asian mainstream media blacked out on that Maxwell Chikumbutsu self-power technology. Why? Because most of these mainstream medias are being funded by those big corporations. Your fossil fuel, your battery, your solar panel. So coming to publish those kind of information right there is going to cost more outrage. That is going to cause a pitfall on the market shares of the solar, battery, energy grid, fossil fuel, you name it, a whole shebang. Okay, buddy. So, guys, um, what I'm gonna say is, you black folks, whatever I'm preaching here is not trying to instigate any sort of hatred or trying to push some sort of add more layers to the racism. No. What I'm trying to establish here is know your worth. When they race against you, you should understand that it's because they are scared of what is inside you. Go and read about the DNA strands of sub-Saharan Africa. It is mind-boggling. And if you truly understand what that very 9 DNA strands, which Africa have three versions that is even much more than the West that are 6, then you will understand that there is something unique about Africa that Africans don't know themselves. But if we start to look at it critically, then we started saying that is why most Africans who didn't even go to school are inventing some disruptive technologies that not even the people who are graduating from Harvard or MITs are able to meet up with that. And so, what does that actually do to Western education system? It cooked it. Let's take a look at the African education system. I've said it at the context of this very video here. It is not producing innovators. It is not producing entrepreneurs. It is not producing thinkers. It is not producing developers in different educational curriculum which African have. Let's say like computer science, civil engineer, applied electricity, you name it, microbiology. They are literally garbage. They're literally garbage. There was once upon a time the West were actually insulting Africa, that Africa institutions have high tuition fees, but they are not producing inventors, innovators, change makers, whatsoever. So that very insult there is not actually systematic. I mean, it's not just an insult, it's systematic because they know they have crippled our education system. And if we really need to build something that is going to change our own way of life, we have to rethink education system. We have to rethink religion. We have to rethink politics. And when we rethink this and we bring out our own version, then it's game over. I made a very strike contrast between what's going on in Nigeria, because Nigeria is the head of Africa, despite the fact that it's nosediving as I'm talking to you right now. And why is that? Because there is that very simple analogy that if you strike the shepherd, the sheep we fall. And it is real. So they have to strike Nigeria. They have to do everything. Nigeria, the story of Nigeria is a very scary one. I'm not saying about the insecurity there, no. I want you to picture this: the most richest nation on the earth. Take my word for it. Nigeria is the most richest nation on earth by mineral resources, by human resources. So, what more are you talking about riches when you exclude these very two? The oil, they have even more oil than Saudi Arabia. Natural gas, they have more natural gas than Russia. And we are not talking about other minerals out there. We're talking about uranium, bauxite, copper, iron ore, you name them. So if Nigeria, for any reason, decided to do something different, which the Western and the European worlds are doing everything possible not to allow that to happen, to decide to develop itself and stop building roads and start building industries that transform their raw materials into finished product, it is game over. Nigeria have amount of resources that can feed African continent. Let that sink in. This is not just a word. And if you imagine the colossal magnitude of mineral resources that is available in Nigeria, however, what's going on right now, where they made everybody to face and look at the oil and forget every other thing there, you understand that there is something much more big going on there. Nigeria have a lot of ingenuities, but when you destroy them using the religion, destroy furthermore with miseducation system, that the graduates are not producing a significant change that's going to drive the Nigerian economy or Africa, then you have destroyed it. Then finally detonate it by turning their people who are supposed to be leaders to become politicians, more interested in playing the games and stockpiling money for their 10th generation instead of developing the nation. Then it's game over. So the West knows a lot about us than we know about them. But like I said, when it comes to African ingenuity, Africans have much more potential to tap beyond the physical realm, beyond the physical science, into the metaphysical science by nature. And that is what they fear the most. That is where this very ingenuity we're talking about, that is where this very bombshell, that's where this groundbreaking innovation is coming out of. And if we look at it, because come on, take a look at it for yourself. We don't have school system. We don't even have health system. Our political ecosystem is terrible. So we literally don't have anything. So how are Africans really surviving? That is something that is very shocking. Because literally everything which is supposed to have made them into become the first world or even something much more than that has been stripped away. And now, even at that very tight spot, they are going out of the established norms to establish something that the West has to kick against it, that it destroys physics, thermodynamics. It is not feasible. It is not industrial applicable. That's what I said about Master Chikumbusu, but who cares? One comment in my video says, who cares whether it cooked physics laws so long as it works? And that is my point. So my message is centered around Africa knows, you should know yourself, that you are the gods of this world. every other race is playing catch up. That's the fact. There are some sort of things going on in Africa. If you have heard the saying by 50 Cent that make it or die trying, it is not actually in the US. You haven't seen the version from Africa where people have to imagine what they're going to eat. Yes, I know. Uh, freight bars. I have actually seen that. We're talking about Stanley Mayer. We're talking about um, we're talking about different people here who have invented a disruptive technologies, and they are no more. I am well aware about that because the world is going crazy. The world is losing their mind. When I mean the world, I'm talking about the world leaders. They are more interested in the control. And that is why the Tatara civilization was wiped out. It wasn't a coincidence. And the information there was erased from the books because it's going to ignite fire, a firestorm that will be hard to quench. And so, um, the only thing what I'm gonna say here is probably let me give you guys who are participating in this very live broadcast a chance to speak. But whenever I'm seeing a lot of silence, I know those people who are coming and going who are silent are white people. You don't need to tell me before I know. And the reality there is that they will never back down because they are already cooked. They design a system that is suffocating them. Look at the level of homelessness in the US. Compare that to Africa. There is no such thing as homelessness in Africa. There is a real home in Africa. If you can make it in the city, you can go back to your village. And in those villages, all the rules and regulations are stripped off. All the policing, all the whatever you call it, it's not applicable there. You should go and verify, but you can see all these things in the news. You can see this in the mainstream media. And that is why they are holding grip on the mainstream media, because if they started suddenly telling you that there is hope in Africa, that there are more greener pasture in Africa than there is in America, then the brain drain dream is going to be gone. Then Africa, because most of Africa also are still brainwashed by the mainstream media. There is a video I published on my channel about a guy who, this guy here, this very video here, aftermath of Western miseducation system. Let me try to see if I can be able to expand this so that you see it. Aftermath of Western miseducation system. This very video here. This very video here is about miseducation system of Western world in Africa and the damage. And there are living proof. A guy who has been brainwashed and looking up to America to be source of livelihood. He stuck himself in the tire of an airplane, hoping that the airplane is actually going to US. But unknown to him, it's actually just traveling from one state of Nigeria to another. And so when it landed and he's still seeing a lot of black people, he knows that this isn't what he actually hoped for. So there are millions of Africans out there who have been brainwashed to believe that the West is where the greener pasture is. But they forgot to ask themselves, why is it that the West, who want to make billions like Elon, or the Asians like the Chinese, will not do without Africa? Constantly in Africa. For lithium, for cobalt, for different sort of minerals that powers the Western tech. And yet, Anyway, I wouldn't so much blame them because it's not everyone who have the kind of mindset I have to see between the lines and read the lines and understand that this is rigged and it is not what they see on the news. It is often facade. And when they get to understand that there are more HV house van in the US, there is not even house van in Africa. Anyone who is buying house van in Africa is for luxury. But in the US, a lot of people are living in a house van and living in what we call bacha in Africa. So when you're seeing a lot of cops trying to incarcerate a black person either in the US or in Europe, you should understand what they're trying to do is to extinguish the fire in you. They have a lot of things that have been structured into making us to become useless to our society, and a lot of things is going on there. Make a research, and you find out that a lot of Nigerians who graduated are ending up POS vendors. It's not just in Nigeria; it's also happening in other Africa. So if it could happen in Nigeria, it could spread more in other African regions where you have a graduate driving taxis. We're talking about doctors, nurses, uh, pharmacy, industrial chemists, you name them. And when we talk about those kind of things, then when I talk about the miseducation system of the West, how it destroyed Africa, a lot of people will think that I'm just saying things that are not feasible, are not realistic, but deep down, you know, it's true. The John D. Rockefeller dream is being manifested. Although even in the Western world, they are creating workers, but in Africa, they're not even creating workers. They are creating job hunters. Perpetual job hunters are when they graduate there, they can literally contribute nothing to the society. So our only option is to unlearn everything we've been taught and re-examine our ancestral knowledge. There's a lot about our ancestors. Teleportation, bilocation. I published a lot about our ancestors on the video here on YouTube, which I know most of you didn't watch it. It only got about 1.6K view. The moment we start going back to learn what our ancestors, the power our ancestors on cultural heritage have, the better we're going to become, because there is something much more monumental about Africa. Let me go ahead and show you the video. This is the video. And this very video here is not a joke. A lot of people are not watching it, but there is a lot to this video than just the caption says or the thumbnail. You can see a woman there who is somehow being upset because in African doctrine, cheating is not allowed. A man can have multiple wives, but the wife, no, is abomination. And therefore, there is some sort of a cultural heritage in Africa that when a woman tries it, it's not that anyone is going to harm her. It's just the law of the land. It's just the cultural heritage we talk about. So those are some of those things that scares the West, and they knows it a lot. So when you see a lot of things going on in the West, like normalizing holism, going naked in the street and punish people who get provoked by it instead of actually punishing the people who are provoking people. So if you watch that very video, you're gonna realize that a lot of power that is in Africa. If we go back to that, then we can do more. We can achieve more. We can realize the power that we have that is above the sport science, that is even above tech. There's a video someone was showing on the internet some few days ago and was asking her, and probably that would have been another topic which I'm supposed to have bring up here. The video was actually showing about a lithography machine, thousands of chips stacked together on a very small portion. And he was asking, how is that even possible? I downloaded it because I decided I needed to react to it. But I don't even know where that very video is right now. Okay, this is the video.
What?
Okay, so the reality about that very video there is the interplay between science and sorcery. The line, the thick line that was there has vanished. The mainstream media is not going to tell you, they're going to tell you science. It's not science, it is sorcery. Because realistically, everything which we are doing today all resonated, everything seen came from unseen. But you are never going to see that on your mainstream. Instead, what I'm going to tell you is to study, get a degree, get a job, and what? Then it becomes the slave of the system, living to pay taxes and living to pay the bills. The bills becomes your mission objective. So in African culture, this is not something that is shocking. If we start posting some kind of videos about African powers, YouTube is gonna flag it. Because you will suddenly start understanding that the education system which you've been fed or studying is fake. That the reality about this very life we are lies more in the spirituality than the physical. That there is more in spiritual science than physical science, and the spiritual science controls the physical science. And that is why the discussion about how Africa built the pyramid, how, in fact, the West are currently trying to destroy it, that Africa didn't build the pyramid. And also going into hiding a lot about Tatara civilization. Because if you understand the immense potential of spiritual science, you understand that everything that we're doing here is just a makeup, it's just fake. The real power is invisible, but we can be the signpost or the manifestation of that invisibility into reality. Let us sing it. So, guys, I just want to come live today to throw some few highlights because it's been quite a long time, and see if there are going to be some people which I'm going to have some chats with. So thank you, Freight 4 bars, and who again? Becky John. I think I've seen Becky John before, and also have a Maximilian. No, thank you all for shout out to all of you guys who joined this very live broadcast. Thank you for participating. I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm gonna reschedule my next live because this time right now. And most importantly, I also want to say thank you all. Thank you for being part of me, for being part of the movement. Whether I like it or not, this is a movement. The Maxwell Chikumbusu self-powered thing is a movement. It's something which I think I've explained before, that when you are studying to get a job, to work, and not to be a boss, even if you're going to be a boss but you're still working on the establishment, it is not being self-powered because you can get fired. So the self-powered extends just above the car to our ability to become self-sustenance from any future that tends to enslave us or make us dependency. Now, for the last one about the very video of the guy who was reacting to the lithography machine, it's only when you are within doing the spiritual thing that you understand that what we're doing here is just a mere makeup. But now, thank you all for participate, and I hope to see you in the comment section of my other videos I'm going to be coming out. If you have any particular invention of any Black civilization you want me to showcase people, you want me to deep dive and find out, you let me know. And there is gonna be an upgrade in my channel which I'm working towards on, where I'm gonna be explaining how some technology works. What is the really need for that? Because it can help us to absorb the information there and start building those to liberate ourselves from poverty. Of my best goal in talking about self-powered revolution is one product at a time. Africa. If you're a Black person, I want you who have participated in this very life in here to take home, rethink one product at a time. If you have already a family, one product at a time. Think about what product can you produce, perfect, bring into the African system. This is the stepping stone to the revolution, the great revolution of Africa, reclaiming its rightful place. One product, one person, one product at a time. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining here. I'll see you next. Bye for now. Thank you.